everybody wants to go through midlife
Well,
crisis.
that's just, they say people at that age, they do. I mean, I just decided, I think, it's funny. I had a conversation with somebody today about entrepreneurship, and, this person was saying, I wish I could have the courage to do it. And I told this person, because it was true for me, the courage came after I jumped in, right? Not before. I mean, because before, it's like almost like when you're trying to jump in the pool for the first time, and right, it's the anticipation, the fear of not knowing. That's where the anxiety comes in. You just have to take the plunge, and I did. Left a very cushy job, making tons of money, driving some really, really cool cars, and decided to, basically turn on, cash on all my chips, and do something that I felt that I was called for, I guess, or I needed to do.
Hey everyone, welcome to Connecting the Dots. We are back with another interesting, deep episode. And today I have the founder of Exitu with Reggie Padin. He's also the founder of the AI Learning Network, a program that I just recently became part of, certifying all of us in knowing how to deliver AI projects, learn how to talk to our clients, and making sure we guide them along the right path. So today's going to be very, very interesting. We're going to get to know everything about Reggie and how he got to where he is today and just his overall journey. So welcome, Reggie.
Thank you. That's scary that you're going to try to learn everything about me. I don't think you want that.
Why not? Why? What kind? Where are the dead bodies? Huh?
Oh, jeez. I forgot. Thank you for the introduction. That was very kind of you. They'll have to say it's Padin, okay? So it's Padin. That's okay.
Padin.
It's okay. I've heard it in every... I gotta say that the way you pronounce this is the first time I hear it that way. It's usually Padin, Padin. I don't know what you said, but it's...
What did I know. I was just rambling
Tendon
off
or something, something like that. That's right. You're forgiven.
I had a little quiz because normally, before the show, I check on pronunciations.
That's right. That's fine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was funny.
It was hilarious.
Couldn't help myself.
So, Reggie.
Yes.
Tell me.
You were asking me where the dead bodies were, right? Is that what you were asking? No, I'm so glad that I'm privileged to be invited to your podcast. I've checked. Since you've joined the network, I've really taken a look at your podcast, and it's super insightful and entertaining and high energy, which I really appreciate. And so, I've been very impressed with your production here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much. But I mean, it gets like this because of you, I have wonderful guests, and you take the time out of your busy day to chat with me about whatever. I didn't even prep you on anything. So
no, it's probably better that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, it's super, super cool. And, anytime that I can connect with people who are having an impact out there and other leaders, that's where my passion lies, is connecting with other leaders who are doing some great stuff out in the community and beyond. And so I'm super excited to be your guest.
Oh, thank you so much. So now let's get into it. Let's learn all about Reggie. Yeah. So tell us about your background. Tell us about you. Where do you live? How would you get into this space?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I tell people that I've lived several lifetimes. I'm from Puerto Rico originally. I was born in Puerto Rico, and when I was 10, my parents moved us to Buffalo, New York, so that's a huge contrast there. And so we moved around. My dad was a minister, and so we got to move to several places, and went to college in Pennsylvania, went to seminary in Michigan, and then ended up in South Florida in 2006. And now I split my time between South Florida and Raleigh, North Carolina, and absolutely love. We were actually sort of neighbors, right? Because you were in Tamarack, I was in West Pembroke Pines. I finally kicked all my kids out of the house back in 2015 and sold the house and moved downtown. So moved to Edgewater. Love it down there. And so I've done a lot. The last 17 years I've been all about talent development at the corporate level, and worked for some very, very fine companies in South Florida. If I mention the names, people will know about it. And 3 years ago, turned 50, went through a midlife crisis, and said it's time to start my own business. And had been planning it for a long, long time. And I said, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And so XE2 was born. Actually, XE2 was my master's thesis, my MBA thesis in 2008.
Wow.
But it didn't become reality until 3 years ago. And so I always tell people, look, you have to have a plan. And sometimes when that plan is for you, you'll never get rid of it. You'll never be able to run away from it. It'll always catch up to you. So here I am. I've been doing this for 3 years, and it's been a lot of fun.
I'm happy that, if you believe in God, or, I'm happy that the universe, God, the Lord, put that in your heart back in 2008. Because now it's like one of those timeline conversions. Like, you have the certification program, which is perfect for me where I'm at right now.
Correct.
So it was like, perfect timing. And I'm so happy that, I'm not happy you went through a midlife crisis. Nobody wants to go through a midlife crisis.
Well, that's just, they say people at that age, they do. I just decided, I think, it's funny. I had a conversation with somebody today about entrepreneurship, and this person was saying, I wish I could have the courage to do it, and I told this person, because it was true for me, the courage came after I jumped in, right? Not before. Because before, it's like almost like when you're trying to jump in the pool for the first time, and right, it's the anticipation, the fear of not knowing. That's where the anxiety comes in. You just have to take the plunge. And I did. Left a very cushy job, making tons of money, driving some really, really cool cars, and decided to, basically turn on, cash on all my chips, and do something that I felt that I was called for, I guess, or I needed to do. It's funny because sometimes it's about timing as well, and people don't understand that. When I did my master's thesis in 2008, and it was actually a business plan, and the economics back in 2009 just made it was incredibly expensive to do what I wanted to do.
That's right.
Fast forward to today.
Yeah.
Right. There was none of this. There was no AI. There was no. And so now you could do actually even more for a fraction of the cost. And
You're
it's
right.
insane. It's insane.
You're absolutely
and so
right.
it made it easier for me to actually be able to do it, because the economics made sense.
You are so right. And I think that's something we all kind of forget about, how access to doing things 10 years ago, 15 years ago are completely different than the access to do things now. Yeah.
And it's gonna exponentially get, it's gonna change, right? And that's where, when I set out to start my business, I had no thoughts or ideas of starting the network. The network really became, it came out of a need that I saw in the marketplace, where I worked in retail, telecom, financial services, professional services, and I taught as an adjunct professor. But I have no idea how some of these industries work. I don't know the lingo. I don't know. It would be insane for me to, come up to speed as to what their processes are and all of that. So the network came out as a result that after I launched my business, AI, about a year after, AI just exploded. And companies were coming to me, leaders were coming and asking questions. And I felt, wouldn't it be nice if I was partnering up with other professionals who understand those different industries, and they could bring more value, much more than I could bring.
Yeah.
And that was the birth of the network. It was just by accident. It was by a need that I saw, and I at first I wanted to join a network that was providing that, and I couldn't find it. So just because I'm a little crazy and cannot sit still, and get bored very easily, I said, let's try it. Let's see. At first, I thought I was gonna hear crickets, when we put out that, but all of a sudden, people like you and other amazing people have been joining the network, and that has been, just far above anything I could have thought of in birthing this network. It's been incredible to be surrounded by such high quality people, and so it's been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah. And again, I have to say thank you so much for just, listening to that, because a lot of people, they do get those little inklings, but they don't listen to it, So,
yeah.
And I do think there's probably some commonality about people who tend to get bored.
Yeah. It's and I'm again, it's sort of if I see a need, my first inclination is to look for a way to solve it, not just me solving it, but maybe looking for an answer to it. And if I don't find it, I can't sleep. I gotta, it's okay. You gotta do it. You gotta do something. You gotta do something. At least try it, right? And the fun thing, there's a lot of trying times in being an entrepreneur, a lot.
Yeah, every day.
But one of the things that is, once you take the first plunge, what the heck, you're gonna try different things, and the fear is absolutely gone. The fear of what if. If is anybody gonna follow or listen to me? You don't care. And so my expectations when I launched the network were zero. I just thought, hey, if there's a need out there, people will respond to it.
Yeah.
And when I have conversations with people, and you could probably attest to this, we weren't begging anybody to join. Hey, you gotta. It's always. Hey, does it make sense for what you want to do? Here's where we're going. We're not about big numbers. We're about the quality of the people, right? And so for me, it's like if somebody says, well, it's not about me, it's great. Or, I've had conversations even this week with people that said, no, I want to do my own thing. That's okay. You're free to do your own thing.
Yeah.
But if you're part of a team and a network, you got to do right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's much
and I was puzzled. I was like, well, why did you reach out to us? What did you think we were gonna? Because we're very transparent. In who we are and what we're trying to do, right? And so, but it's it's part of the process.
Yeah. And it's great that you have this, because I think for me, I was looking for I didn't even really directly mean to look for it, just kind of started coming to me, just people who are actually experts in the field of AI, because there's just so much marketing out there. And I'm like, where are the people who actually understand this? And where can I learn from, because I do plan on, my goal at the time is becoming more and more of a thought leader in the space to clear out some of the noise that you see. So that's why for me, I'm like, wow, this makes perfect sense, because now I have a framework that I could use, and there's probably information that I haven't come across yet that you provide in the courses, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell people, and you talk about the noise, unless you have a PhD in computer science and you've been working with AI, for 10, 15, 20 years, you're not an expert. And the reality is that none of us are experts, right? We're all experiencing AI in real time and what it's affecting, right? How it's affecting us. I heard an interview with Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI and ChatGPT. And he says, half the time we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how this is going to turn out. We're all experiencing it together, and so what I envision for the network, and actually for my company as well, is look, this phenomena is out there, right? I consider myself an expert in talent development and learning and development and instructional technologies. I've used technologies to help organizations increase and enhance and better their training programs. This AI reality is going to affect, it's already affecting, right? So I may not be an expert in, the ins and outs of computer science and the models, but we can leverage that technology and what we know about it in our particular context, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I tell people is, listen, don't, and by the way, the network is also a reason why it was so important to bring people together, because listening to different people's experiences, right, of how they're really facing the realities of their industry and their workplace. The rest of us can learn from that, right? And so we can start filling in the plugging in the holes. And so the reality is that we need to sort of listen, be humble, listen to each other, and understand that we're all traversing this period, a very exciting period of time together.
Yeah. And that, I think, actually, that was a good point you said about Sam Altman saying, like, okay, we're all experiencing this together for the first time. Basically, we're trying to figure it out. That was one of the things I also realized about the other entrepreneurs and other CEOs and more mature business owners I've met, is that everyone's trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. And that's why, in our program, AI is just one piece. The bulk of the program, of the training program, it's all about the disciplines and the science behind talent development, right? Because those are going to be affected, right? Yeah. They have been affected. I mean, ever since COVID, COVID really pushed things over the edge, right? And so we came out of COVID, and now we're experiencing this huge transformational period with AI coming into play. And so what we do is we give people that may not have a background in talent development and learning and development, and we tell them, look, this is how this could impact the development of an individual within a corporate setting, right, or a business. And then the third piece that we emphasize is how to be a servant leader consultant, right? You hear that, and I listen. When I was at in the corporate level, I had to deal with consultants, right? And I mean, some of them were okay, but the vast majority, they came in thinking they know more than everybody, and here's what you got to do. They don't listen, and so
that's why
they come in.
I started my consulting firm, because I saw that behavior so much, and they would always get things wrong. Like,
like, how are you supposed to help an organization if you don't understand the organization?
Exactly.
So the consultant, the network that we've created, and that we are in the process of creating, it's all about, hey, let's go in with humility. Let's have a process in place. Let's respect the process. And it starts with, assessing what the company is going through and the pain points, listening. And then it's, hey, where's the leadership in this? Because it doesn't matter. I mean, again, I've been part of experiences where the consultant will come in and, it's costing, $30,000-$50,000. It's making pronouncements, and then it hits the C-suite, right? And it dies, right? And so for us, the process is clear. It's analyzing the company, where they're at, understanding where the leadership is, and then the culture of the place, and understand where the people who are actually doing the work day in and day out. You have to do those three things before you start thinking about the implementation of a strategy, then testing the strategy, and then you rinse and repeat, right? And so if people, bypass any of those steps, I actually wrote a blog that it's become a $300 billion problem for companies.
Yeah.
$300 billion problem, because the problem is that 87% of companies are failing in the implementation of AI within their companies, and it's because they're bypassing one of those, right?
Yeah.
They think, oh, we need a chatbot, right?
Exactly.
Or we need
exactly.
no, it's
exactly.
more than that. A lot more than that.
Yeah. But you know what, Reggie, I'm on a roll today, huh? Reggie, I found the same thing with just regular implementation. So like, I would be the type to recover projects. I'll be pulled in to recover it. And every single time I saw there was that first initial gap analysis. So I called it a gap analysis back in the day. You would call it gap analysis. Now, people just say an assessment, right?
Yeah.
There was no assessment. There was no framework of what are you guys doing today? Like documented, like requirements.
Right.
And what do you want to do tomorrow? What's your vision for tomorrow? Okay. And then you have your process to, the plan, and then you do your iterative, pilot, refine it, and then scale it.
Right.
To actually get it done. And so I'm seeing the same thing with AI, but the difference is because there's AI available, I want to say large language models like your OpenAI and your Claude. So because all of those are available, there's so much more marketing material being pushed out.
Yeah.
Like 50 times, whatever the scale is.
Yeah. It's insane.
So everyone thinks that they're falling behind, but no, in reality, you have 50 different products doing the similar thing, where before it was maybe 5 products doing a similar thing.
Right. Yeah. I heard somebody the other day say that it's gonna become a commodity.
Exactly.
Right? And he equated that to the .com bubble, right? In the .com bubble, it was the early days of the internet.
Yeah.
And everybody was doing something, but the reality is that hardly any of those companies had a solid business plan, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is, you have to do the dirty work. You have to do the process of doing your homework and ensuring that you have a solid strategy. Of course, it's going to change, right? Especially now, it's very fluid.
It is.
But at some point, right, we're gonna have to say, okay, how many models are we gonna have out there, right? For us, we are sort of stuck in about 3 of them right now, and it's for the purpose of sort of training one to do exactly what it is that we want to do, right?
Right.
And if you do that, you have maybe a greater chance of providing something of value to organizations, right? Because anybody can provide a chatbot nowadays, right?
Yep.
Anybody can do that, but it's what are you trying to accomplish? And if you can pin that down, right? If you can pin down your goal, then leverage AI to help you.
Exactly.
Then you have a clear plan, right?
Yes.
You're not throwing spaghetti at a wall, right?
Exactly.
You have a clear plan as to what you need to do in order to get better in your company. And so, it's becoming a commodity. Everybody's trying to do their own thing. I've been like eyebrows deep into the implementation of AI in wearables. That's something that I've been super invested in. We're prototyping a couple of products.
Oh, that's cool.
Because again, the model is the model. If you can then take a model, any model, and then train it and just stick with it and train it,
right?
Then that model is going to do what you need to do. So why focus on, hey, let me do another fancy AI, gadget when you can use that to enhance other things that need enhancement, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that having that mindset is going to help not only the individual. A lot of people are fearful if they're going to lose their jobs, but it's going to help the individual and also the entrepreneur who's trying to start something in the business that they're working at. So sometimes we need to take a break and stop for a little bit and process what's going on.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. As you were talking, a question came to mind because you have experience in the talent development in the corporate space. And the question that always pops up is, will AI take jobs away?
Yeah.
And what we're seeing right now, there are a lot of layoffs going on, but I think it's kind of, I feel like there's a lot of things behind those layoffs besides just an introduction of an AI tool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's definitely a disconnect, right? Because, and, some people say, yeah, we're all going to lose our jobs, right? And that's an extreme. And then people are saying, no, we're not going to lose our jobs. I mean, we're just, what's going to happen is there's going to be those who can use AI and those who can't, right? I'm all for, it's just a part of lifelong learning. You have to be up to speed with whatever, especially if you're a professional. You have to be up to speed with the technology of the day. Exactly. If not, you are going to get left behind because you're not going to, know what you're talking about and how it affects you.
Yeah.
And then your competition may be really leveraging it, and it's going to run circles around you, right? And so that is absolutely is a necessity for people to be versed and educated in it. But I do fear that, and it's nothing new. Some companies right now are sort of looking at this and, check this out, right? Some companies are saying, after the pandemic, nobody wanted to go back to the office.
Right.
Now, I don't have a dog in the fight, if you're pro office. I work from anywhere. I can work in an office and I can work fine, remotely. I'm just disciplined that way. And by the way, sometimes I need both, right? And so I need to be by myself in an office, and I need to collaborate with people at the same time. But now you have, coming out of the pandemic, and you have all these people saying, well, I don't want to go to the office. Yeah. And now you have CEOs saying, oh, okay, well, let's see what we can do with AI instead.
Yeah.
And they're putting it to the test. And of course, the AI is not going to, AI is going to make mistakes, and it's going to, but if you train it, if you invest in it, AI can do a lot of stuff that a lot of people can do, and it's not going to complain. It's going to work 24/7, 365. It's going to do everything you need it to do, and it's not going to complain, right? And so a lot of companies are putting the brakes and say, well, wait a minute, do we need as many people now? Which should be a wake-up call to a lot of people. Right? You need to, well, and by the way, another conversation I heard, it was actually this week, of how the future of work is a side gig. It's you starting your own thing.
Yeah.
What you're working on, you may not have a job in that space anymore.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do? Starve? No, retool, get ready, launch your thing, and especially now if you have a job, start preparing and start working, because now it's a better time than doing it out of desperation, right?
Exactly. You want to build something while you still have employment. It makes it a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it's like, it's a fascinating thing, because in some of the larger organizations I've worked in, there's a lot of people that don't really do a lot of things. Like, like they've been there like 15, 20 years and they just coasting, right?
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like, they're like, especially like in the consulting space, a lot of the big guys, they're losing market share because a lot of the smaller guys now have a lot of more robust power because of, OpenAI and Claude and, So it's like, there's a lot of jobs being cut from those big companies, but at the same time, they were kind of inflated jobs, and you can't get fired. And so, because there's so many people that, like, for example, they'll complain about their manager, and their manager is not as skilled as they are, but their manager is just there because of X, Y, and Z. So it's like, on one hand, there's a shakeup. Maybe it's like, on one hand, there's a shakeup. Perhaps there's more efficient, maybe there's a more efficient way to clean house of an organization to get the people who still care, right? Because that also affects culture.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's also like people that I know who are very, very talented people who got let go, and it's not clear, right?
Yeah.
But then you have like the human element where a lot of people actually hated their corporate job and they're very talented. And so it kind of goes back to the point we were talking about courage, where you're not going to make a leap if you're comfortable. But then when you get pushed out of somewhere, you're like, oh my God, it slaps you in the face. And then you're like, wait, I always wanted to start this other thing anyway. So this gives me the perfect opportunity. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is that, I mean, we don't know how it's going to affect all of us, but it will. It's already started to affect us. We don't know how far this is going to go, right?
Yeah, we don't.
And we don't know how fast it's going to be before we're being disrupted right now.
We are.
That's the bottom line. We're being disrupted. And so the remedy, by the way, the remedy to, and not just because I'm an educator, but the remedy to all of those issues is continuous learning.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, and I hate to use this line because every PhD uses it. I remember my first class but this happened in my first class where the professor congratulated us for making it to the program. And he says, it's great news for you. You made it. It's something that you're going to earn. And only 1% of the population has ever attained what you're going to attain. The bad news is by the time you graduate, you're already obsolete. I was part of the instructional technology program, and boy, was he right. Boy, was he right.
Yeah.
And this was, I graduated. Well, I started taking classes in 2009. This happened in 2009. So think about everything that's happened between 2009 and now.
Yep.
Right. He's right. And so a lot of people think, well, I have my degree, I have my knowledge, I have my skills, I have my, I can just rest on that. You do that at your own peril. And so I've always been a huge proponent. I mean, that's why my company, we do the things that we do is for people to continuously learn new things, be exposed to new things. It's only when you, and this has been my experience, it's only when you broaden your horizon that you start connecting the dots.
Yep.
Right? It's like, wait a minute. What I read here, which probably was not connected at all, but whatever you learned here creates a spark that answers a question of a product or a service or a process over here.
Yeah.
But if you're not exposed, if you're just close to your whatever you earned up to that point, degree-wise or experience-wise, it's gonna be tough. And a lot of these companies, what they're gonna be looking for is strategic people, is people who can. I understand the technology. I understand this discipline and that discipline. And by the way, here's how it connects.
Yeah.
Right? And so
More
it's gonna be yes.
I'm finding that as well. Like I'm seeing that, like, especially with the type of content that I put out. Like when I first started my podcast, I wanted a concept of not being so specific, and I wanted a little bit of everything. That's why it's called Connecting the Dots.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And I remember I had pitched the idea to one of my friends. And she was like, you're not going to get any subscribers. Like, you have to niche. You have to be specific. Like, just choose one thing. Like, talking about, I don't know, something fashion maybe, or something. But I'm like, no, I want to talk about everything because that's how I see life. There's this piece always affects this, which always affects this. And then everything always comes full circle. Right.
Right. And not only that, but, and by the way, I think we've all been there. To a certain extent, you have to be niche to a certain extent.
Yes.
But the problem with that is, what if there's no market or no You know, there's no need for your services and your knowledge in that particular niche. What are you going to do? So I am a huge proponent of having multiple, you know, plates spinning in the air. I've tried so many things since I started my business 3 years ago. And people look at me, well, I said, look, because when you're starting out, you think what, I mean, you come in with, you know,
but you don't
eyes
know.
bright open, thinking very optimistic it's going to work, and it hardly does. It hardly does. So you hear of the startups who continue to pivot until you find that, okay, there's a connection here. Let me try a little bit more on that. And there's a response. And then you keep doing that, and then all of a sudden you found your niche. Actually, your niche found you.
Exactly.
And so you just double down on that, right? And the nice thing about it is that today AI can be an assistant to us, right? I don't know if you haven't read this book, or I encourage anybody who's watching or listening to read this book. It's called Exponential Organizations. There's been several issues or versions of that, but the latest one really deals with how AI is. I mean, soon, and this is what, you know, a lot of experts are saying. Soon, what used to take an organization or a company, you know, millions of dollars and a huge staff of people, you're going to have 2 or 3 people, you know, working and leveraging AI, and they're going to be valued more than companies that have, you know, thousands of people. Right. Sam Altman is saying that they have an ongoing bet in a circle of AI, you know, people, or I wasn't going to call them geeks, but that's not a good word, but he says we have an ongoing bet of who is going to be the first entrepreneur, the first single entrepreneur they'll become $1 billion business. A single person. And so again, but if you don't know the questions to ask, if you're not exposed to new ideas, if you're not open to those things, then it's going to be very hard to I love the you know, your pro connecting the dots. There's no dots to connect if the only thing you know is one dot. You have to have multiple dots.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, this conversation is so good. Like, and I want to ask. I think this one will probably take us through. So, based off of all the conversations you had, the experience you had, things you've seen, and just all the context you have up until this point, what would be your prediction of how things will go in the next maybe 2-3 years? What's your top three predictions? I'm not I don't predict a lot, but you know, you see patterns over time. I definitely see how AI is going to mature to the point where, you know, companies are going to settle in, which will open the door to businesses and technologies and services that we don't know anything about today. So I see new industries and new products and new services coming to the forefront, and so that again. But if people are not, keeping up with things, you know, you're not going to be a part of that, unfortunately. So I see that. I see a maturity. I see where the hype will, you know, the fever pitch will come down. It always does, right? And in every revolution, it comes down, right? I mean, the internet was a hype, and then it became a real force for business, and so that's going to happen with AI. Here's a thing that I am betting on, and I'm an instructional technologist, and my forte has always been, you know, digital and distance education, right? So doing a lot of this. Here's my prediction. I think the pendulum is going to swing all the way back, where people are going to long for personal connections and actually learning together in person. Yeah, I think that's already happening, Reggie.
It's starting that, but it's gonna come even stronger.
Yeah.
People are gonna long for that, because think about it. You right now, it's very hard when you're looking at something through the screen, and we're early on in the process. You can't tell if it's AI or a person.
No. Well, I feel like some people are starting to pick up on it, though.
Yeah, but you start sensing it. But there's going to come a time
we don't want it,
because this is the worst version of AI that we will ever see in our lifetime.
That's true.
So what's going to happen is, because we're being bombarded through what's coming through the screen, we're going to long for, no, I want to go somewhere and see people and be able to touch and and interact. That's coming. That's going to come. Mm-hmm. And so I'm one of the things that I'm working on, I can't say much about it, but one of the things that I'm working on is having a sort of like an in-person retreat center. Not big, right? But a small, intimate place where people can come and work on ideas and work on business plans and reconnect. Because again, distance work and online training and all of that is fine. I'm all for it. If not, I wouldn't have a business. But the day is coming where people are gonna be longing for that face-to-face human interaction. We're social beings. Yeah. You can't prevent us from doing that.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. Okay. All right. I love that insight. That's actually, I didn't even think about how for me, I didn't think about how realistic the AI could look in the future, to your point. And everybody's already starting to complain about it now. Like, there's so much AI stuff on there. So that was actually a really good point. And it's like, I do see that trend coming, or like starting already. But yeah, I think it's going to definitely explode.
Well, actually, the majority of the things that you're seeing online, AI, the vast majority of them are amateurs.
Yeah.
Right. So you could tell after a while. You could tell, right, for sure. But there's going to come a day that you won't be able to tell, especially if it's professionals, and especially if they're working with supercomputers, and you won't be able to tell.
You won't. Yeah.
And so how are you going to know if the person that you're talking to is legit or not? Hey, let's meet. So I am betting on that. I am betting that the future of X2 and the network will continue to, of course, be technology driven and helping people navigate that. But the face-to-face personal connections is coming. It's coming quickly.
Yeah, I agree. And we have to be in person too. So
of course. Of course.
Yeah. So Reggie, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And where can people find you?
Oh my gosh, LinkedIn is probably the easiest. If you go to LinkedIn and find, look for Reggie Padin, you'll see me there. And then from there, connect on, follow our journey in the network. If you have any questions, come talk to us. We're always willing to listen to people, and willing to help out. If there's a company who needs sort of to assess what they, how they're going to leverage AI, reach out to Jessica, reach out to us, or anybody in the network. We're here to help and assist.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for coming on, Reggie. I really
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Let's
it.
do it again.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening and thanks for watching. If you were inspired by what you heard, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.